Not enough people talk about the stress of becoming the first millionaire in your family. Now, I'm not a millionaire yet, right? But I believe I'm on the trajectory of getting there, right? I've built a couple businesses, got them off the ground. Haven't made too much, right? But now I'm on a different path, right? I started my online business, my spiritual business. And, it's working, you know. But the reason why I really got into entrepreneurship, right, was because I was looking around that environment, right? I'm looking at a single mother, right? I'm looking at, dads who don't have income, basically, like they don't really have too much coming in. I'm just looking at people struggling, I'm looking at my grandfather, with medical bills that he can't pay for, all this other type of stuff, right? I was looking at all this type of stuff as a kid growing up, on top of growing up in LA, you feel me? So it's like, right? So I noticed like early, I was like, nah, the typical route, school, all that other type of that's not gonna put me in a position where one, I could afford the things that I want in life, live the way that I want, but then help my family as well. And there's no way in hell I'm gonna be in a position where I can be handing out millions to my family members and helping kids in Africa and, rebuilding schools, rebuilding roads and all this type of working a 9 to 5. It just didn't seem like something that was possible. So I kind of ruled that option out very early in my life. Now, that perspective was all good and everything like that with the fam, with moms and all this other type of stuff, right? Until I started getting older, right? And then, the conversation of, oh, do you want to go to college? Are you going to college? If you're not going to college, what the fuck are you going to do? All this other type of shit, that type of energy. So I ended up going to school, dropped out. I went for business real estate, got into school for real estate, and then realized they wasn't teaching me shit about real estate. I had all these other prereqs and in the midst of COVID at that too, that had nothing to do with real estate. And I was automatically turned off because I was like, this already doesn't feel like the path that I want to be on. But, I'm trying to make the people around me happy. I'm trying to make moms happy. You feel me? I'm trying to make her proud and everything. I'm like, so why not, So ended up doing it, dropped out, went to this film school, right? Because once again, trying to make moms happy, I'm like, if I'm not going to go to school there, I'm going to go to school somewhere, because she on my ass. She like, you got to go to school. She's like, it's not even an option. Like, I had to drop out secretly type shit. So I went to this film school, everything like that. And once again, I'm seeing the way things is working. I'm hearing about graduates who can't get jobs and everything like that. And it's just further instilling in me where I'm like, you know what? Maybe I'm not tripping, right? But I was in a household where it wasn't encouraged, right? And so when anybody who's going down some type of entrepreneurial, creative path, that there's ups and downs. There's a lot of uncertainty at moments, right? And when you're around people who's done nothing but work their whole life, like really worked, they don't necessarily understand sometimes those down periods, because they view it as, oh, you're just being lazy or, things aren't going your way. So you need to, come over here to our side, not understanding that things go in waves and sometimes you're just figuring something out. But that doesn't mean that, things isn't going to work, in other words, right? So, like majority of young black boys I'm not going to say majority, but, ones that came from single moms, stayed at mom's until I was like, like 20 something, right? Wait, there we go. The camera fell out of focus. But yeah, stayed at mom's, she was just on my head, like it doesn't seem like nothing I was doing was like good enough, if that made sense. Like I would secure a deal, I'd make a couple $1,000s, do something, she'd be the first person I come to town. It's like, oh, I don't really know, Yeah, it was always focused on, getting a good job and all this other type of stuff, right? So it was always some type of back and forth because I was just very stubborn to it. And then that comes with, the gossiping to family members and family friends and stuff like that, kind of highlighting the struggle, but not highlighting, the upsides and the benefits and, the successes, kind of highlighting just one part of it because they don't understand it, it's kind of like that doubt phase. But even once you start surpassing just a tad, and you start having the results, it's like they don't really acknowledge it. I feel like it becomes a little bit more tense, if anything, And that was just looking around, there isn't a lot of initial support unless you're around other entrepreneurs, right? Now, granted, No, my papa's side, my dad's side, my papa had put out that album, first rap album. So he's kind of like an entrepreneur. My dad is too, technically. So I was around that spirit, and I think that's what opened me up to be like, okay, you know what? I know I'm not tripping a little bit because now I'm seeing things. I'm meeting all these stars. My phone, literally, there's celebrities in my phone that I can just pick up and call. Now, whether they're gonna or not, that's one thing. But I have the number, like really seeing different things, being like, oh, this is how this person lives. This person's doing what they love to do, and, everything else like that, and I remember meeting, it was actually, I'm gonna name drop this one because it isn't no type of bad shit or anything like that, So I met Trinidad James through my papa. I guess I got invited by somebody. I'm gonna keep his name private, but he got invited by another family friend, I think. And it was in there chopping it up and everything like that. And he was doing this thing called Reflection Sundays, He's probably still doing it in like the A or something like that, right? So I was going there, doing the thing, and then one thing led to the next, and I was moderating the room, The person who invited me was like, he feels like somebody who can, do this and captivate a room and really, talk to people and have them open up. So that's what I was doing, I was journaling for years upon years because I was also going through a heartbreak. I feel like that's also very important to note. Simultaneously, as all that COVID shit was happening, I got out of like a hella narcissistic relationship. Like it was just a lot of, and I was just having to build myself up from ground zero, in other words. But yeah, back to the reflection thing. I started moderating it, and I started noticing like a gift of mine, like all the work that I was doing to heal myself was things that were helping other people, that was needed for others and, etc., So I was like, interesting. Maybe this is for me, So I dug down deeper and I started posting more content. And granted, I've been posting content since I was like 12, 13 years old, Like I saw like somebody DM me. It's like, I hope you're not just doing this like blow up type of stuff. But it's like, when you realize how long I've been making content, I've did over a decade of making content, from gaming videos, mental health, men's mental health, everything, for over a decade without a dime coming from it. You get what I'm saying? So it's just in me, Certain things was just in me to do, and certain things was just in me to go down. But when you aren't around, or you didn't grow up in a household where that was the normal, you doubt yourself. And that's what a lot of my early 20s, even though I'm still in my 20s, early 20s, that's what my late teens to early 20s was cultivated with a lot of self-doubt, not acknowledging. I'm sorry, the only reason I'm moving like this because I'm trying to make sure my autofocus is right. But, it's filled with a lot of self-doubt, not acknowledging myself and really doubting the process and my own ideas. So, I had to learn how to trust myself, I had to move to my dad's, in more uncomfortable positions. I don't have my own room and all that type of shit anymore. But I'm around people who aren't necessarily critiquing me or trying to force me to go down another route. And it actually helped. My content blew up crazy enough after 10, 12 years of just posting and nothing working. It took me really leaving, and isolating myself. And, you feel it sometimes, because you want to be around, family and friends and all that type of stuff. You do. But it's like there's just so much tension underneath it and behind the scenes. And it becomes difficult for you to stay in those type of spaces because that tension makes it harder for you to go after the things that you want. It makes it like way more difficult to stay focused and achieve the things that you want to and really become the person that you want to when you feel the pressure of the people around you, and particularly the people that you love, not necessarily being in agreement or understanding what you're doing. So you isolate from from a sense of self-preservation, almost like I need to keep my tempo as pure, positive, and optimistic as possible, because those are the perspectives that's going to allow me to keep building, stay resilient, stay persistent, and potentially change certain circumstances, right? And once you actually start remembering too, it's like you're doing it to help, you're doing it for these people. It's like you separate from a place of love, because like you may not understand me right now, you may not understand what I'm doing right now, but in due time you will understand why I had to make the decisions I made and why I was so stern on not making certain decisions, right? Yeah, it's not easy, being the first person in your family to surpass certain things or try going after certain things. The best example of that I feel like I have in my family right now is my papa, right? From his words, he's not a millionaire and all this other type of stuff, right? It could be true or not. I don't know. You get what I'm saying? I don't pocket watch. That's the thing too. But I'm sure he's made money. He's a rapper, getting publishing, all this other type of stuff. So that's somebody that I can look at and be like, it is possible. It is possible to not have to clock in. And crazy enough, he was also gaming me up too. He was telling me certain things like, it's hard to get rich when you're working a job. It's almost going to be impossible to get rich while working a job because you're simply just not going to have enough time. And once I actually started sitting back and realizing that, I went through a whole chapter where I was trying to do content and Uber. And then I was realizing doing the Uber Eats shit was draining my energy, and it was making it harder for me to do content consistently and actually push forward. It was like an energy exchange. At a certain point in your life, you got to make your mind up. And once your mind is made up, it's easier for you to go down certain routes. If this route isn't for you and you don't think that it's possible and you can't deal with the short-term pressure and the short-term sacrifices for a better outcome and a better ending, then this probably isn't the route for you. It probably is best that you go get a job, go to college and everything else like that, because that's a beautiful route too. You get what I'm saying? Not everybody who gets a job is down, out, broke, and all this other type of shit. But what I'm saying is, if you are okay with that, then if you are okay with short-term sacrifices, if you are okay with being uncomfortable for certain periods, just so you can get further and closer to the things that you're going after, so you can help and so you can cause impact, then you need to make that decision early and accept the sacrifices and the adversities that come with making that decision. Sometimes it looks like you literally taking an L, but if you understand that this L is part of the bigger picture, you'll release the weight behind taking the L and you'll just take it and be like, okay, let's just move on. You get what I'm saying? You release things, so you release the energy. Like with family, friends, everything else like that, you release the energy because you're like, well, okay, that may be the energy right now, but I know what I'm working towards and I know what I'm trying to do, so I can provide and help in certain areas. The circumstance may change once those things are acquired and once those things are done. So I'm just going to let it go. Oh, is he pointing at me? Somebody standing by my car. Little fat dude. My fault. But yeah, I think that's really it on that one. You just have to have a big heart and be really resilient and see really long term. Because if you don't see long term, the pressures of the people around you and your family and the ones that you love is going to make it difficult for you to keep going. At a certain point, you're going to get to be like, maybe it was better broke, Maybe life was better when I wasn't going after these things. You'll get to that point and it'll hurt low key, when it's like, damn, I feel like we got along better and things was easier when I wasn't in the position that I'm in, when I wasn't going after the things that I'm going after. And that'll hurt because, you also aren't willing to sacrifice what you're working for because you know your why. And when your why is that important, it's hard to let go of it. It is. Yeah, people just may not understand it, but you have to see it through. If nothing else at all, you have to see it through, because if you don't see it through, then you went through all of this for absolutely nothing at all. And that's, I feel like, would hurt most people immensely. So yeah, just believe in yourself. Don't be scared. There's going to be moments where you're scared. Trust me. Embrace it. And learn how to beat fear. If that's the last thing you do. That needs to be the first thing you do. But learn how to conquer fear. When you feel anxiety, when you get nervous, that's other type of shit. Learn how to move anyways. How to make the best decision and the best possible call. And do not doubt yourself in the process. You may not see the results. You might not. But if you keep putting one step in front of the other, don't doubt it. If you see something works and you feel like something works, do it. If you've seen other people do it and you know that it's a proven blueprint and formula to get a set result, study, do your research, and do it. And don't doubt yourself, because I promise if it worked for somebody else, it can work for you too. And that's something that you have to understand about being a generational curse breaker. There's other people out here that have broke the exact same curse that you have. And the moment that you realize that, you empower yourself to be one of the next ones, you're next in line. So yeah, with that being said, I love y'all, I love y'all, I love y'all. And I'm gonna see y'all in the next video. Peace.